to the Treasure Coast Unitarian Universalist Church in Stuart, Florida. Today is April 27th, 2025. My name is Janet Grote, and I'm your worship associate today. We are a welcoming congregation. We welcome people of all gender identities, ethnic backgrounds, and yes, even ages. We recognize the inherent worth and dignity of every person. We are on YouTube too. To be put on our mail list or to find out more information about us, Google TCUUC to find our website, and hope you don't come up with the University of Texas. Did you remember to silence your cell phones? Okay. See our order of service, which was passed out for details about the announcements. Today, learn about immigrants and deportations with a presentation by Marisol Zequera, a local immigration lawyer and community activist. It will be here at noon in Heston Hall. Every Sunday, prior to the service, we have a meditation which begins promptly at 10 and ends at 10:20. It's held in the back meeting area in Heston Hall. Oh boy, Friday the 2nd, going to have John Moore and the Stubborn Bastards. 5 p.m. Next week, there will be a congregational meeting after the service. And of course, today we will have cookies and coffee in Heston Hall. We may still be eating as the presentation begins. A big help for those who help with the service. Rather than thank our normal, regularly, so faithful people that help with the service, I want to call out a few of the many that make services here possible. First, Ronnie Dembowski, who has been doing, who's been doing our accounting for years with a break here and there, and David Gray, who's done David, who has done so much over the years, and most recently dealt with the trip hazards in the parking lot. And then there is John Cook. Whoa, there he is. And most recently, he's been dealing with the irrigation. And Paul Monaris, who's covered so much of our facilities. And Jackie Buckley, there she is, okay, who I call our Wonder Woman. She not only fixes things, but she is often here and there and everywhere when we need her. I could go on naming those who help behind the scenes, and yes, the board too. Today, we welcome Reverend John Brown back into our pulpit. John is a ministerial affiliate at the Vero Beach UU, where he leads groups, he does visitations, and steps up for Sunday services. John's academic career began with his undergraduate work at Union College in Kentucky, and then moving on to earn his doctorate in religion at the Claremont School of Theology in California. John is a cherished regular minister here and always brings us a compelling, relevant message. Thank you, John. We look forward to your sermon today. We're going to do our prelude now.
This is Johann Sebastian Bach.
Thank you, Jackie. It's time to light the chalice. This is our circle of chalice light, where peace and love are burning bright, a place of wonder, a place of fun. Welcome, welcome, everyone. Opening words, Henry David Thoreau. I pray today that I may hold on to what is good, even if it is a handful of earth. Hold on to what I believe, even if it is a tree that stands by itself. Hold on to what I must do, even if it is a long journey. Hold on to life, even when it is easier letting go. May I live in each season as it passes. Breathe the air, drink the drink, taste the fruit, and resign myself to the influence of each. May I be blown by the winds. May I open all my pores and bathe in the nature of tides, in all her streams, oceans, and seasons. May I grow green with spring, yellow and ripe with autumn. Drink of each season's influences of isle, a true panacea of all remedies, mixed for your special use. Now we're going to have our first hymn, which is number 69, Give Thanks. Now it's time for our affirmation. Let us recite our affirmation, speaking the first verse, and I'm sorry, yes, we speak the first verse. We're not on the hymn yet. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in truth, truth and love, and to help one another. John is going to do our responsive reading.
Blessed are those. For those who are reading your hymn books, it's on page 728. I guess that's all of us. All right. Blessed are those who yearn for deepening more than escape, who are not afraid to grow in spirit. Blessed are those who take seriously the bonds of community, who regularly join in celebration and learning, who come as much as to be ministered. Blessed are those who bring their children, who invite their friends to come along, to join in fellowship, service, learning, and growth. Blessed are those who support the church and its work by their regular, sustained, and generous giving, and who give of themselves no less than their own. Blessed are those who know that the church is often imperfect, yet rather than harbor feelings of anger or disappointment, bring their concerns and needs to the attention of the church leaders. Blessed are those who do it gladly, who realize that change is brought about through human need, who do the work of committees and stay all in. Blessed are those who speak their minds in meetings, who can take and give criticism, who keep alive their sense of humor. Blessed are those who know that the work of the church is a transformation of society, who have a vision of beloved community transcending the present, and who do not shrink from controversy, sacrifice, or shame. Blessed are they indeed.
Perfect, I'd say. Joys and sorrows. Let's share our joys and sorrows. I did not have an introduction of our visitors. I'm going to, yes, right now. Yeah, this minute, yeah.
Hi, we're Hal and Maureen Hoyt. We go to the UU Church in Oak Ridge, Tennessee. We lived there 20 years, but before that we lived in Florida, 30 years of which were here in Stuart. And in fact, we were both members of this congregation like 21 years ago for about a year. We have family in the area, and we stop by whenever we're in town. It's nice to be here. Thank you.
Glad I remembered. Okay, joys and sorrows. So please step up to the mic to speak. Tell us your name first, and then we're going to move a stone in our symbolic river to mark each joy and sorrow. Of course, you know we're supposed to keep it brief and personal. Bob.
Good morning. I'm Bob Royce. I have two pieces of really good news to share. The first is we traveled to Tampa to the Moffitt Cancer Center this past week, and Sherry continues to be cancer-free. So that is fantastic news. The second piece of great news is that we're both still alive. Traveling back from Tampa, we were sideswiped by an 18-wheeler.
Oh.
Yeah, neither of us have a scratch, so we're good.
Wow.
Hi, I'm John Morn. I just got back from Poland a week and a half ago, and we traveled there with some close friends, my wife and I. He was born in Poland in the late 50s and left in 1963 and has not been back since. Wow. And it was such a great joy to be there with him in his homeland and to see the joy he experienced. And he grew up speaking Polish at home, but never learned to read and write it. So he couldn't read signs, but he knew what people were saying. We did have some sad moments while we were there. Chris and I, not the others, traveled to Auschwitz and visited that, which is such a great reminder of how evil people can be. And we also visited the Warsaw Uprising Museum, another sad place to go, but actually it was a pretty wonderful visit, so mostly joy. Thanks.
Carolyn?
Hi, I'm Carolyn Haken, and on Friday, a friend of ours had been having some discomfort for a while, and he went to the emergency room where he was diagnosed with a grade 3 heart block. And it was very serious, and they've kept him in the hospital over the weekend, and he's supposed to get a pacemaker tomorrow. And so we've been very worried about him, and I hope you'll keep him in your thoughts.
Judy?
Hi, I'm Judy Bajoris, and earlier this week my sister called that her husband, my buddy, Gil, had broken his right hip, and he has a lot of mobility issues. He had broken his left hip several years ago, and my sister had fallen into a depression after that. So it's been a tough road, but he's in rehab. And the good thing is that she doesn't have to travel up to College Station, which is a good hour's drive from where they live to the hospital or rehab. She found a place 5 minutes from where she lives. So, and she's pretty reclusive, so this is really great that she's able to have him so close and that he is recuperating. And so please put your thoughts out to the universe for Gil and Marguerite. Thanks.
Ronnie?
Hi, I'm Ronnie Dembowski, and last week I told you that my stepdaughter was going to have a liver transplant, and my husband is out there now, and they still don't have the liver transplant, so we don't know when it's going to be, but she is getting weaker, and it's pretty sad, but I guess the doctors had to talk about it and all this kind of stuff, so we're hoping maybe this week, so keep her in your thoughts, please.
If you had shared a joy, may the feeling of happiness go through the heart of our fellowship. If you have shared a sorrow, may your sorrow sink deeply into our compassionate hearts, and may you know that we care. It's now time for, oh, yes, a stone for those of you who haven't stepped forward. Now, Reverend John is going to do the pastoral reading.
The pastoral reading was written by Kathleen McTeague. Following the meditation that I will share with you, we will have a period of silence in which you can reflect on the words, just recharge and renew, regroup. May the light around us guide our footsteps and hold us fast to the best and the most righteous that we seek. May the darkness around us nurture our dreams and give us rest so that we may give ourselves to the work of our world. Let us seek to remember the wholeness of our lives, the weaving of light and shadow in this great and astonishing dance in which we move. And now, the Spirit of life. Let us hum first, and then we will sing the words.
John and Truman. It's time for our offering. The offering we take each Sunday isn't just a stale habit. It's an opportunity to recommit to this place and to this people. Our offering is an affirmation, a yes. Thank you, Jackie, and thank you for all your offerings and your pledges. Now, Reverend John Brown is going to give us a sermon.
The title of the sermon, Want What You Have, was originally written by Reverend Forrest Church, who served as a spiritual leader for 30 years at the Unitarian Church of All Souls in New York City. And while Reverend Church was a pastor of the congregation, he became both a haven for spiritual seekers and a beacon for social outreach to the community. He helped to establish a shelter for homeless women in Harlem, a scouting program for boys and girls at a welfare hotel, a scouting program that was very well known and very effective in that area. And during his lifetime, Reverend Church authored and co-authored nearly 20 books, ranging on topics from American history to liberal religion and spirituality. He was frequently interviewed as the voice of liberal religion on national radio and local television broadcasts. And during his church's tenure as congregation, All Souls congregation flourished. A membership of roughly 200 to 400 people were more than tripled over his pastorate. In fact, it moved to at least 1,400 members and was one of the largest congregations in the Universalist Church then as it is today. I must tell you, though, I was introduced to Reverend Church a few years ago in a sermon by a person you know, Reverend Scott Alexander, who was a frequent pastor or preacher in this church. He is now serving a church now in the Washington, D.C. area, so he's left the good state of Florida, although he's still keeping his residence in Vero Beach occasionally. And I saw him a few weeks ago in preparation for this sermon because he knew Reverend Forrest Church. He's become one of the famous ministers for me because he was fallible and at times a frail person. He worked very hard in his ministry. He fought demons, though. In fact, in 2000, he acknowledged his alcoholism, joined AA, and stayed sober for the remaining years of his life. He faced other struggles as well, and what perhaps made him a popular minister and preacher is that he faced these struggles head on. He didn't run away or ignore them, and used them to enlighten his congregation with compassion and with a great deal of love. In February of 2008, he shared with his congregation that he had been diagnosed with esophageal cancer. And the doctors expected him to live really only a few more months. With his death sentence in hand, Forrest did what he did best, and he picked up his pencil and paper, and he began to write. The book that resulted is called Love and Death, My Journey Through the Valley of the Shadow, which I highly recommend. He expected this would be his final work. However, as a result of an experimental treatment for his cancer, he lived longer than predicted. And he managed to pen one final work entitled The Cathedral of the World, a Universalist Theology. Beacon Press published this work after Forrest's death in September of 2009. I found it fascinating that Reverend Church was in the public eye for most of his life. Perhaps you know his father. I remember him, Frank Church, a Democratic senator of Idaho. He chaired committees that investigated the Central Intelligence Agency during the 1970s, and he ran for the Democratic presidential nomination in 1976. And after serving 4 terms in the Senate, Frank Church was defeated for re-election in 1980, and in 1984, he also, unfortunately, was diagnosed with cancer, pancreatic cancer. Forrest and his father were both diagnosed with terminal cancer and given really only a few months to live. Reverend Forrest Church lived 2 years longer than expected, while his father died 3 months only after the diagnosis of cancer. Reverend Church wrote a great deal about his own death, and if you want to talk with somebody that knew and was intimate with this experience, I highly recommend his writings. But even though he had terminal cancer, he continued to be an active minister in New York City and in his congregation, and a prolific writer. The title of this sermon grew out of the mantra that Reverend Church lived by, and it goes like this: want what you have, do what you can, be who you are. Let me read that again. Want what you have, do what you can, and be who you are. He felt this helped him to live life in a meaningful and lasting way. And these words serve as a summary of a philosophy of theology, a statement of faith, and a way of life. I believe these 3 statements warrant some attention, and so in tribute to Reverend Forrest Church, I thought it'd be helpful to you, as it certainly was helpful to me, to really refer to his sermon. Reverend Church asks us to imagine that our lives are made up of a large window with many panes. If you like, you can use the image of a stained glass window. Each pane is made up of some aspect of our life: our job, our hobbies, our interests, our health, our relationship with our partner or spouse, the world we inhabit, and with our children or our grandchildren. At any given time in our lives, some of these panes are going to be clear and they're going to be bright, the sun shining through them, and others are bound to be clouded over and perhaps even impenetrable of any light. And while we may be enjoying a particularly productive time in our lives, things at home with our partner may be strained, or perhaps we're deliciously and deliriously in love with a new mate or a new hobby or a new interest in life. But it strains our relationship when we're so involved with our friends. You get the idea. Some of our windows are rosy and allow the light to stream in, while others may be foggy or even boarded up. Forrest states that as human beings, we are inclined to focus on or obsess over the cloudy window panes to the exclusion of the sunny ones. The tendency, he writes, is to press our nose against the one frame, desperately trying to see through it. And when we do this, he continues, we lose all sense of proportion. Our entire world, in some ways, becomes completely black. The effect of pressing our noses up against the darkened window pane is that we lose sight of the other window panes that are clear and bright. The black cloud of the unreasonable neighbor is carried home to darken our home relations. The betrayal by a friend makes all other friendships suspect. And when our health is compromised, all we can see ahead is a lifetime, if we're not careful, of disability and pain when one of our window panes becomes dark. And when this happened, Reverend Church tells us, we literally lose sight of the things in life that are really positive, really joyful to us, life-affirming and life-giving. Are we losing sight of the light by seeing or feeling anger toward the present administration in power in this country at this time? Do we feel a tremendous amount of anger or fear? Does our anxiety regarding Donald Trump's leadership of this country sabotage our enjoyment of life? It is natural, I must say, to feel anxiety with all that is happening in the world at this time. A friend of mine, a psychologist, said at least 3 to 5% of Americans feel anxious about immigration, the economy, Social Security, as well as other pressing issues. In looking at this darkened window, this can cause us pain that can be costly to our mental, physical, and spiritual well-being if we're not careful. In my relationship with our government under the leadership of Donald Trump, I find the changes he has made and is in the process of making are discouraging, are terrifying, are costly. I went to a town meeting in Vero on Monday night. Over 700 people attended. We were waiting for the Republican representative to show up. He never showed up. As you know, many of the Republicans have been advised not to attend these town meetings. But the leader of this group used this large population of people in a very creative way. People were able to let their feelings out. People were able to express concern. People were able to really give information about the deportation and the immigration that many of us did not read about in the newspaper. I must say, though, that I am encouraged at times by the law, in that it helps me to see with clarity and brightness that which is happening at this time. And I've been able to really rejoice sometime with the Supreme Court, what they have said about this individual who is in El Salvador, although the Trump administration at this point has not brought that person back. I must tell you, though, that at times I'm very concerned. But how are you doing? How are you feeling about all that is going on within this country? Reverend Church warns us against wishful thinking. Wishful thinking, he calls it. In his book, Freedom from Fear, he lets us know that this form of thinking can sabotage our ability to want what we have. Instead, he recommends that we practice thoughtful wishing. Thoughtful wishing. This can easily blossom into a paralyzing fear until we learn to wish for the right things. Because if we wish for the wrong thing, the fear of disappointment will dog us from one broken dream to the next broken dream. And happiness does not follow when we long for what we lack, for things we have lost or shall likely never find. Longing for something we may find in the future distracts us from enjoying the present. Wishful thinking is both sloppy and sentimental, he says, wishing for what is ours here and now to have, do, or be. In his later book, Love and Death, he states it slightly differently. Pray for the right things, he says, and your prayers will be answered. And some examples of thoughtful wishes or the right things for this day and time include the courage to bear up under pain, the liberation that comes with forgiveness, the joy to be gained in the smallest tasks, and the wonder that lies between the sacred moments of our birth and death. And so it is through these two lenses, the lens of our lives as many paned windows and lens of thoughtful wishing, that for us encourages us to want what we have. Wanting what we have encourages us to wish for things thoughtfully and pray for the right things. And how are you doing with thoughtfully wishing for things? My thoughtful wish is that our country will still provide an active, helpful asylum for people who seek safety. There is so much violence in homes in various countries that our great land needs to be a light for hope and a place of peace and tranquility. Deportations have been extremely painful for individuals and families, and yet in the midst of all of our pain and frustration, Dr. Church in this day and time encourages each and every one of us to step back from the darkened, opaque window panes that we have our noses pressed against, so that we can see and appreciate all the other panes that remain brightly illuminated. What we have enables us to live fully in the present with an appreciation of all the gifts of our lives and acceptance of those things that we would never consciously wish upon ourselves. And keep in mind that want what you have does not mean simply accepting our fate or our condition in life. Certainly, we are not to give up or to stop trying in life. For example, we are not to remain in an abusive relationship or simply give in to an illness that can be treated aggressively as possible. My wife also went to Moffitt, Bob, and we were told that she has cancer the size of an eraser. And she's to be active with her oncologist, which she's going to be. And she's looking at it in an aggressive and a strong and a positive way. She was going to be with me today, but she said, I just don't feel well today. I trust that when I'm back with you in June, she will be with us. What we have is not to relinquish our responsibility to care for ourselves and for others, or to look at the suffering and injustice in the world and to simply say, c'est la vie. When we look at the life of Forest Church, he was active and he was not passive with his cancer. He serves as an inspiration for my life, and I trust for yours as well. Therefore, we might consider being active and voicing our opposition to the injustices we see within us and around us. A man who really has stood up against the injustices, who's not been passive. A man who died this past week, Pope Francis, who will be remembered certainly as a pastorally sensitive leader who sought to reconnect the church with the essentials of not only of the Christian faith, but with all faiths, with all denominations. Francis sought to follow his namesake, St. Francis of Assisi, the 13th century Italian friar renowned for poverty, peace, and the care of creation. I remember him as a man of action. I didn't always agree with him, but I remember him as a man who certainly engaged in dialogue and reached out to people from different persuasions in life. He insisted that action against climate change was a moral imperative for all of us, each and every one of us, to engage in. He made defense of this planet, the plight of migrants, and building peace through, yes, dialogue, as I mentioned, the pillars of his papacy, and sought to live out his vision of a humbler church, opting to reside not in the Vatican's apostolic palace, but in his guest house, Casa Santa Marta. Francis' belief in dialogue bore some fruit in 2015 when he acted as a mediator between Cuba and our country, helping us in the reestablishment of diplomatic relations. But amid an eruption in global conflicts, the Pope was something of a voice crying out in the wilderness. He was a man who was a prophet, a man who took many risks, a man who stood up for justice. Reverend Forrest was mindful of how he saw life, and he believed that we all need to be persons who are prophets for justice. He really serves as a lesson for us in living with what we have, whatever it may be in life. And he said, quote, "I have preached on living in the present for my entire career, nostalgia for the present, looking forward to the future, and I always preached to myself because I was hung up in the past and I was apprehensive about the future, mostly about things that never happened. We make it up as much as we experience it," he said, "and the future is a complete crapshoot. So only in the here and now can we love God and love our neighbor, that we redeem the world, redeem the day." And one of the beautiful things about a terminal illness, one of the truly beautiful things, yes, there is a lot of pain and discomfort and sometimes agony, but if you've made peace with your past and have no unfinished business, you do not have a full plate for the future, and you are invited into the present, and your friendships become stronger. Your loved ones become more vital and more present. Each day becomes more beautiful. Each day is a gift unto itself, and you just unwrap it. You unwrap the present and receive it as a gift it is, and that is, for me anyway, an unexpected blessing. During this time of trial, you walk through the valley of the shadow, and it really is riddled with light. End of quote by Dr. Church. In essence, hope is seen by Reverend Forrest, and living the present are helpful insights he really gives to each one of us with all that is going on in the country and in our personal lives. May Forrest Church's life serve as a beacon of light during this time, and may this light grant us calmness of mind, body, and spirit during these challenging times. Amen. May we now sing together. We are climbing Jacob's ladder. If you're using the hymn book, it's page 211. We are climbing Just want to remind you of the coffee hour immediately following our time of worship. And there will be a lecture that will address really that event of integration and deportation. And invite all of you to that wonderful lawyer who will be speaking to our congregation. There is too much hardship in this world to not find joy every day. There is too much justice in this world to not right the balance every day. There is too much pain in this world to not heal every day. There is too much confusion in the lives of countless people to not find relief every day. Each of us ministers a unique way to this weary world. Let us go forth now and do that which calls us to make this world more loving, more compassionate, and more filled with the grace of divine presence. Amen.
Thank you.